It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
From the studios of the Metro News Radio Network in Morgantown, this is West Virginia's premier sports talk show.
From Weirton to Welch, Martinsburg to Matewan, and all points in between, this is the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline.
Tonight's show is brought to you by Northside Automotive, Route 19 in Summersville. We'll beat the advertised price of any other dealer in the state, guaranteed. And now, sitting in for Tony Caridi, here's Brad Howe.
Hi, everyone. Good evening across the state of West Virginia and beyond. Welcome in Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline for Wednesday, November 25th, 2015, the day before Thanksgiving. I'm joined in studio by the coach, Greg Hunter. Good evening, Coach Hunter.
Good evening, Brad. How are you doing?
We're well. I'm well, thank you. Just saw you for the last 3 hours. We filled in for Dave Weekly on Hotline, but we're revved up and ready to go here for the final hour for us. May just be the first hour you're joining us for you. Here's what we have on the show for you this evening. Coming up after our first break, Jake Trotter, ESPN Big 12 blogger, covers the league and will talk to us about a bunch of different things, where the playoffs stand with Oklahoma moving into the top 4 last night in the latest college football rankings. The new schedules are out for next football season. We'll talk a little bit about those schedules with Jake coming up after the first break. And then a little bit later in the show, Monty Cater, Shepherd head football coach, will join us. Shepherd takes on IUP this weekend in the NCAA Division II playoffs, a game you can watch at the Metro News channel on our website, wvmetronews.com. So we'll have Jake Trotter coming up in just a bit, Monty Cater a little after that. If you'd like to weigh in tonight on the show, you can tweet me at BradHowe07, at Brad HOWE07, or, as always, you can give us a call, 1-800-765-TALK, 1-800-765-8255. And, Greg, before we dive in to a little Mountaineer football versus Iowa State this weekend, sad news to report, as I'm sure many of you have heard, former Mountaineer standout receiver Stedman Bailey was shot twice in the head last evening in Miami and is in the hospital recovering, undergoing surgery. Does not appear to be life-threatening, but certainly in critical condition.
Yeah, and some of the latest news reported by ESPN.com is that surgery has already taken place for Stedman, former Mountaineer receiver, and is out of ICU is resting in ICU as we speak. And his cousin who was with him was also shot. Apparently, also 2 children or younger individuals were in the vehicle as well last night. And, you hope and pray that Stedman is okay. Obviously, his health is first and foremost, but then his playing career is a factor as well. I mean, here's a kid with a great deal of talent, has had some missteps within the NFL, latest being a 4-game suspension for PEDs, some form of suspension. And you hope that ultimately he comes through okay and that he can pursue a career that obviously has afforded him a paycheck that's pretty good.
Just a horrific, tragic start to the holiday week, end of the holiday week here coming up. All right, let's dive into Iowa State, West Virginia, Greg. And the story, in my mind, in this game is Iowa State comes in with a coach that will no longer be coaching them. This is the final game of the season for them, but it's also Paul Rhodes' final game as head coach of the Iowa State Cyclones. After 7 seasons, he was let go last Sunday following their, no other way to describe it, inexplicable loss to Kansas State when they led by 7 points with about 91 seconds to remain. So the question is for Iowa State, and I know there's no way to answer this right now, what kind of Iowa State team do you get? Do you get one that, by all accounts, Rhodes is an extremely well-liked coach, seems like the players will go to the mat for him, but emotion only carries you so far. How far will that carry the Cyclones this weekend before the emotion wears off and the talent on the field takes over? In my mind, that's the biggest question heading into this game.
Isn't that the million-dollar question? But again, I think talent-wise, the Cyclones have some offensive skill guys, and they can put some points on the board. But defensively, they struggled with consistency level. Turnovers have hurt them a lot throughout the year. They've lost a lot of close and tough games. Certainly, we focused so much on the Kansas State game this past Saturday, but they'd lost other ones. Oklahoma State, just prior to that, they had a big lead, had an opportunity to knock off what is now a college football playoff team in Iowa earlier in the year. And again, you listen to the Iowa State people, other than the Texas Tech game in Lubbock when they really got run out of the building, in Oklahoma, which was just outright better, they haven't really been out of any other game. Even the TCUs and Baylors of the world, they were there and maybe didn't have great opportunities to win, but were competitive and respectable. But what does that mean with a lame duck coach? And you like to think for West Virginia, the defensive matchup of what West Virginia can do on the ground is something that Iowa State's not been great at in stopping the run. West Virginia certainly is going to take advantage of that matchup if it continues to present itself.
It's interesting that Paul Rhodes, I'm sure Mountaineer fans know this because as West Virginia's been a member of the Big 12, you've played Iowa State now a couple times, but it is interesting that the scene of one of Paul Rhodes' greatest triumphs when he was
last
the defensive
road victory.
I wasn't even going to go there. I was going to go back further. That's a good point. I was going to go back to defensive coordinator for Pitt when they rolled in the famous 13-9 game. Paul Rhodes was on the sideline with Dave Wannstedt as his defensive coordinator. Then you fast forward to, again, one of his biggest triumphs as a head coach, the win over West Virginia here in 2013, which now stands as the last conference win on the road for Iowa State. So he returns to a place that he hadn't had a ton of success, but those are two pretty milestone moments in a coaching career that was really successful. And he did a great job with Iowa State early on, but just couldn't sustain it. He won't be out of work long, Greg. He does have a $4.5 million buyout that he's getting from Iowa State, but if he wants to get back in as a defensive coordinator, he'll have a ton of opportunities. But I thought what was interesting, he talked at his press conference the other day, Paul Rhodes did, about staying loyal and staying at Iowa State, even though he had opportunities to go elsewhere.
And after 3 bowls in 4 years, yeah, betcha, I could have been gone. But I wanted to do what hadn't been done before. It meant a great deal to me to be able to provide that for the fans at Iowa State University. So I stuck around and continued to give it everything I had. In the end, it wasn't enough.
So I think that's the key. I mean, I think you said it right. This team felt really close in Iowa State, and I think that's why it was such a difficult move to remove Paul Rhodes at this time, because they had shown some flashes. They got rid of offensive coordinator Mark Mangino a few weeks ago now, and it seemed to spark the offense a little bit. You could tell there were some butting the heads between Mangino and Rhodes about the quarterback situation. Mangino's out, Joel Lanning in as quarterback, and that offense has shown you a little bit. They got Mike Warren at running back, 3,000-yard receivers, so it's a team that struggled, but not without weapons.
Let me ask you a couple questions in terms of Rhodes and the philosophy, because you've talked about this many times in the past. Should Rhodes, in retrospect, have left after his 4th or 5th year, knowing that it's so hard to sustain success at Iowa State? Should he have looked to move on to a better job at that point in time?
Good question. You're right. I'm a big believer in today's day and age, getting even to double-figure years at a school is really tough if you've had success, and each school defines success differently. You're seeing that at LSU right now with all the reports that Les Miles is going to get run out of there with a 110-32 record and a national title, and that's not enough after you hit this point. He's in his 11th season. So I understand that. I understand why coaches get on the move after a certain amount of time. In Rhodes' case, I think no. I think he did it right. He's an Iowa guy. He was born in Iowa, grew up in Iowa, had been out of the profession a long time, and he spoke about this at his press conference. He thanked the athletic director, Jamie Pollard, for giving him a shot to be a head coach. He wanted to be a head coach, and he got that job. He got the head coaching job, his first one, at a place that he would say was his dream job. So I think if you're him, I think you do what he did. You ride it until the end of the line when you know probably the inevitable is going to come, because Iowa State is such a tough place. We talk about this league and how hard it can be at West Virginia. Iowa State's an even tougher place to win and sustain that success. But I think if you're Paul Rhodes and you're an Iowa guy and it's your first head coaching gig, you go down with the ship, so to speak. Knowing
all that, in how close Iowa State was at times this year to getting a number of huge victories.
Yep.
I mean, you can look at 4 or 5 games where they're on the cusp pulling up monumental upsets. We mentioned Iowa, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, being those of biggest note. Should Iowa State have pulled the trigger?
Great question, and I think you could. This is one, and a lot of times I don't know that you can go this route. This is one that's split right down the middle. I think you can make a reasonable argument on both sides of this, and the argument to keep him would be just what you said. They're right there. They look like they've shown improvement. They're right there. The other side where I think AD Jamie Pollard came down on was close isn't good enough, quite frankly. This is a results business, and you got to win games. And remember, they put that, I don't remember what the total number was, but it was multiple millions of dollars worth of renovations into that stadium.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got to pay for that stuff, right? And you need to go out and raise money. And Iowa State's got as good a fan base, not just in the Big 12, maybe in the country, of a group of fans that has not won anything but continues to show up and pack the place. But at some point, you start to get frustrated as a fan base. And at least now what Iowa State has done, Greg, they've hit the reset button. Right? You can at least sell hope now for the new guy for a couple of years, even if you struggle. So I think that's ultimately where they landed, but I think you can make a good case either way.
Yeah, I mean, again, they've invested huge in that football program. It was 3 years ago when we were there. They were just opening a new facilities building that was tens of millions of dollars. So they have one right in the end zone, but this one was beside it. So they still have their older one they were going to convert into other type of things, but their new facilities building was off to the side of that. That's gorgeous. Then just over the last year, they expanded that stadium. And, I don't think anybody gives Iowa State credit. I mean, I think when you're in West Virginia, you don't realize, but this is their average attendance this year, and when they haven't been very good,
yes,
it's 56,500.
Right.
West Virginia in a year when they've been pretty good is 56,800. So just a couple hundred difference in average attendance at this juncture. I don't think people realize the fan following, and you think, it's Rutgers, it's Temple, they get 15, 20,000. No, that's not true. I mean, they have a huge investment in that program. Extremely loyal base. Let's get a quick phone call in here before the break. Terry from Morgantown's on the phone. Terry, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'll make this really quick. Brad, talking about, your neck of the woods out there, get both of your opinion on this. Is it, Greg, hey, guys, the reason why Paul Rhodes got 7 years, Brad, you know the reason why he got 7 years.
It's hard to win there.
Well, no. The reason why Paul Rhodes got 7 years is because he's one of their guys. That's the reason why Paul Rhodes got 7 years.
Helped him, certainly.
Yeah. Greg, the fact is that, what was it, year 2 or 3 or year 3 and 4, he got the 2 straight bowl games, right? He had a little bit of a peak there.
Yeah, I think that's right, early.
Okay, but then look at the last 2 or 3 years now.
8 wins in 3 seasons.
Exactly. So, look, the guy... The guy, just simply, as Paul Rhodes said, didn't do enough. But if he'd have been in another school, I don't think he probably would have been gone after last year. So, my opinion is this: is that I think that he got more than a chance.
Oh, I think there's no question there. And Terry, thank you for the phone call. We're up against a break here. I hate to make you run, but he's also got an AD that understood the landscape of where he was. I think that's part of what he has too. Is an AD that knew what the expectations were, and Rhodes was well liked, a stalwart of the community, and again, it's just a tough place to play. More of this when we come back. Jake Trotter will join us as well. Hunters, got game? If you do, there's 3 ways to check it: by phone, call 844-WV-CHECK. Online, log on to wvhunt.com. In person, stop by a hunting or fishing license agent. You'll need to know your permanent DNR ID number, and when you check your game, you'll be given a 13-digit confirmation number you must write on your field tag. It's that simple. If you need an ID number, visit wvhunt.com. Back with Jake Trotter as the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline continues.
Good-paying jobs with great benefits are available now. As a correctional officer with the West Virginia Division of Corrections, you'll also have educational opportunities for a degree in criminal justice at reduced prices. High school diploma or GED and drug screening required. Take advantage of an accelerated hiring and training process that other state agencies don't offer. National Guard members get partial credit in the Training Academy. Visit WVDOC.com.
You know, there's nothing like that moment when you get home in the evening, standing outside, seeing your family safe and warm, and you say a little prayer of thanks for all that you have been given. The Friends of Coal would like to take a moment to offer our thanks. Thanks to the people of West Virginia who have stood with our coal mining families in times of joy, in times of pain. Thanks to our coal miners who keep the lights of home burning bright. Thanks to the men and women, mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers who wear our nation's uniform and will spend this holiday season far from home. Thanks to our founding fathers who gave us this wonderful nation in which we live. And above all, thanks to our Creator who gives us the precious gift of life and the wonder that it holds. A message from the Friends of Coal.
Coal is West Virginia.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
When something is missing from the picture, it doesn't make sense. Without the right people, your work site is just a site. Your office is just a space. Let's Train West Virginia has grant funding for on-the-job training in today's in-demand careers. Workers learn while they earn, and companies can be reimbursed up to $10,000 per eligible new hire. So qualified employees and satisfied employers complete the picture. Learn more at letstrainwv.com.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Gosh, cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Welcome back in. Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline, Wednesday, November 25th edition. Brad Howe, Greg Hunter, along with you. Let's talk a little Big 12 football. And for that, we'll go to the phones, bring in Jake Trotter, who covers the Big 12 for ESPN. Jake, welcome back to the program.
Good to be back. What's going on, guys?
Well, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Let's start with, so the Big 12 can breathe a sigh of relief for at least a week. They're in the Final Four as we speak. Now, I know we saw it last year. We saw TCU in there and drop out. How do you feel about Oklahoma being in? You feel like if they win, they're locked in?
Yeah, this is a completely different situation, I think, than what we saw last year. You don't have anybody looming like in Ohio State last season with a lot in front of them with the Michigan game and then the Big Ten championship. Really, at this point, the only team that could, I think, jump Oklahoma number 3 would be Notre Dame, but they only have 1 game left. And going to Stanford is about the equivalent of going to Oklahoma State. So I don't see how there's going to be a big enough differential for the committee to say, okay, we're going to move Notre Dame all the way up from 6 to 4 or 3 ahead of the Sooners. And then also on top of that, Oklahoma's going to win a conference championship with a victory Saturday. And that the committee has said that's going to be a metric that they factor in. Notre Dame is an independent, can't win a conference title. So I think the chances are pretty good at this point. If Oklahoma wins, they're going to be in. I don't think we're going to see a repeat of last year where TCU was in the top 4, won, but still got jumped by another team.
So Big 12 gets greedy. Okay, what's it take to get 2? And what?
Hunter, you are getting greedy.
You need a lot of help.
That is greedy. That's pretty greedy.
How does Baylor get in there as well?
Yeah, I think so. The scenario there's a bunch of scenarios that could get you there, but I'll just give you one. So you would need Baylor and Oklahoma obviously to both win. You would need Stanford to beat Notre Dame, and then Stanford to come back and maybe lose to USC or UCLA in the Pac-12 title game. You'd need Florida to lose to Florida State, and then maybe come back and beat Alabama in the SEC championship. And if that's the scenario, then you have OU, Baylor, potentially, Clemson, and then a Big Ten champ. Although a one-loss Big Ten team like Ohio State or maybe even a two-loss team like Michigan would be in the mix too. But if all that happened, there is a scenario in which you could see 2 Big 12 teams make the playoff.
ESPN's Jake Trotter is our guest. Do you think if Oklahoma is the Big 12 rep and they get into the college football playoff, does that stop the discussion of expansion or even adding a conference championship game if this waiver comes through? Does that end that talk at least for a year?
It definitely puts the pause button on it. I think it's going to be status quo if the Big 12 gets a team in the playoff. You know, the reason that they wanted to get the waiver for the conference championship was the ability and potential to change things up, shake up the format of the conference if 2 years in a row, the first 2 years of the playoff, you don't get a team in. But I think it's becoming clear now that an 11-1 worthy Big 12 champion has a pretty good chance of getting into the playoff based on what we saw with the rankings on Tuesday. So, yeah, I think that'd still be a possibility down the road. You know, a lot can happen, you know, over the next 5 years. But to me, if Oklahoma gets in or even Baylor gets in or Oklahoma State gets in, if one team from the Big 12 gets in, then I don't think you're going to see much change to the conference in terms of the format.
Obviously, this weekend is going to have some very interesting games in terms of the Big 12. Oklahoma going to Oklahoma State. Looks like Baker Mayfield is going to play for the Sooners. And then you have Baylor TCU. TCU is now down to his 14th quarterback.
So is Baylor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Baylor is down to his 14th quarterback. Yeah, TCU's only on 2 or 3. So give us a look at those 2 big games. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, TCU is an interesting team this week. They finally have kind of bounced back from all the injuries and getting routed at Oklahoma State and played pretty well in Norman without Trevon Boykin. I think Boykin's going to play Friday coming off the ankle injury. And you look at Baylor, and they're down to their third-string guy. And, yeah, Chris Johnson played well in the second half in Stillwater. But, you know, I think I'm going to need to see more before I become a complete believer that Baylor offense is just going to keep churning along. So I think TCU has a real chance to beat Baylor in Fort Worth, especially if Trevon Boykin is back at quarterback.
ESPN's Jake Trotter is our guest. So the Big 12 released its football schedule for 2016 yesterday. One of the big topics this year was about the schedule being so backloaded, and the Big 12 has said publicly that they didn't do that on purpose. It was just out there. So taking that at its face value, I guess I can assume that the league thinks West Virginia will be one of the preseason favorites because they've got Oklahoma and Baylor in the final 3 games. That's just coincidence, right?
I think much of what happened this year was coincidence. If you talk to people at the office, now they wanted TCU Baylor late in the year on Black Friday. They wanted Bedlam at the end of the year because it always is. But some of those games I think were a little bit by chance. Oklahoma State, you remember when they launched the schedule last year, was 5-6 at the time. So nobody really saw them in terms of scheduling at that point as being some big-time contender. The fact that they got a lot better from that point to this season is what really made the schedule backloaded, because now instead of, you know, Baylor and TCU and OU all playing together one another, then you have Oklahoma State in the mix as well. And sort of the unintended consequence of all that was what happened to West Virginia this year, where they had to play the 4 top teams in the league back to back to back to back, and 3 of them on the road, made it almost impossible for West Virginia to be a contender this year, kind of like they were the season before, or had a chance of emerging. So I think West Virginia, you know, we've seen it. West Virginia is a good team. I mean, they're probably going to go 8-4 and have a chance to go to a decent bowl. You know, the fact that they had the schedule configured that the way that it was this year is what really hurt the Mountaineers, and it doesn't look like anybody's going to have that kind of scheduling obstacle like this season.
Do you think that's, and again, I'm with you. I'll take them at their word that was coincidental, but man, it was a heck of a coincidence because there's a lot of games.
Right.
But do you think that's good for the league? Do you think it has helped that it's been backloaded like this, or is it playing with fire a little bit, and that if you lose a couple of these games, you're basically out because it's late season losses?
Yeah, I think it was playing with fire. I mean, it looked good on paper. It looked fun, but I mean, look at these teams, the way they've beaten each other up. There was an article on Oklahoma State I saw actually this morning where the defensive players were talking about how tired they were in that Baylor game. You know, having to play TCU, having to play, go on the road, and then coming back and playing Baylor. You've seen injuries really take a toll for all the contenders. And even if that's how you wanted it to be, you know, late in the year, you're not going to have all your guys anyway. So I think it was always going to be difficult for this month to live up to the hype that we looked at the beginning of the season when it looked like all these teams were going to be right there and we're going to have some epic matchups. We still have had those games, and we're still going to this week, but it's tough when you got to play. Like, you know, with West Virginia, it's tough to play 4 top 15 teams or 3 top 15 teams in a row.
Jake, certainly who's going to win on the field is intriguing as we come down here, but pretty soon this league is going to announce player of the year. So give me yours. Offensive, defensive, coach of the year. Offensive players probably changed because of injuries. Seth Russell may have been a heavy candidate there, but obviously he's done. So give me your thoughts for those 3 major awards.
Yeah, it's not done. There's still games this week. But with that said, I think early on it looked like it was going to be Trayvon Boykin, and that's sort of been passed on to Baker Mayfield and what he's been able to do, carrying the Sooners for Offensive Player of the Year. Defensively, I think it's maybe a 2-horse race between Emmanuel Agba from Oklahoma State, Andrew Billings at Baylor. You might throw Eric Stryker from Oklahoma in the mix. Carl Joseph, for example, was leading early on in the year. He would be right there if he'd stayed healthy. And then Coach of the Year, it's hard to put anyone but Bob Stoops on that list. When you look at the Texas game, they were done. And the way that they've come back and not only won every game since, but as dominant as they have been, has been incredibly impressive. I think if Oklahoma wins in Stillwater, Bob Stoops is probably going to get the nod for Coach of the Year.
All right, great stuff as always, Jake. We appreciate you taking some time for us. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll catch up here again soon.
Sounds good, guys. You too.
All right, there he is. Jake Trotter, ESPN, joining in. Time for a break. When we come back, the head coach, Shepherd Rams, Monty Cater, joins us. Stay with us. We're back after this.
All Medicare-eligible individuals. It's time for open enrollment. Take advantage of the health plan's Medicare plans, with benefits such as Silver Sneakers gym membership, an extensive list of doctors and hospitals. Contact us 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week at 1-877-847-7915 or visit healthplan.org/Medicare. This information is not a complete description of benefits. Contact the plan for more information. Limitations, copayments, and restrictions may apply. Benefits and/or copayments coinsurance may change on January 1 of each year.
Coming this fall, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, Cherokee, and Renegade. This lineup is a captivating ensemble. Critics are calling the Jeep Renegade inspiring and efficient with up to 31 miles per gallon highway. Four-Wheeler Magazine is calling the Jeep Cherokee the 2015 4x4 of the year. And Grand Cherokee is recognized as the most luxurious SUV in its class. Hurry in for a great deal during the Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster sales event, going on now through November 30th.
Well-qualified lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4 for $279 a month for 36 months with $24.99 due at signing. Tax, title, and license extra. EPA estimate, front-wheel drive with 1.4-liter multi-air turbo engine and 6-speed manual transmission. Ward segmentation, Summit model. Call 1-888-925-JEEP for details. Requires dealer contribution and lease through Ally Financial. 20-cent charge for each mile over 30,000. Residency restrictions apply. Take delivery by 11:30. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
The Metro News channel at WVMetroNews.com brings you round 2 of the NCAA Division II playoffs. Shepherd hosts IUP this Saturday at 12 noon.
Let's go, boys!
Tune in as Travis Jones and Carl Lee bring you the sights and sounds of championship football. Don't miss a minute of the action with the live video stream starting Saturday at noon.
That's it!
Only on the Metro News channel at WVMetroNews.com.
There it is! There it is! Go!
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
When something is missing from the picture, it doesn't make sense. Without the right people, your work site is just a site. Your office is just a space. Let's Train West Virginia has grant funding for on-the-job training in today's in-demand careers. Workers learn while they earn, and companies can be reimbursed up to $10,000 per eligible new hire. So qualified employees and satisfied employers complete the picture. Learn more at letstrainwv.com.
Welcome back, Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline, Wednesday, November 25th edition. Brad Howe, Greg Hunter, along with you. And a reminder, you can watch our show each night by going to our website, wvmetronews.com. And if you go there now, you can see these wonderful beards that Hunter and I are sporting right now. They're coming in nice, Hunter. Very gray and white, but they are coming in nice. And
thick. I'm not sure nice is the right word.
If you don't know by now, we're doing that to raise money and awareness for the Alzheimer's Association. There's 40,000 West Virginians suffering from this horrific disease, and that number is expected to double in the next couple of decades. Here's how you can help us. Go to the website we've set up, noshavewv.com. That's noshavewv.com, and click on the Make a Donation button. Don't think any amount is too small. $5, $10, whatever you can spare will help us fight this disease. And we only have, what, Greg, about 5-6 days left. So we're in the final week here. If you can help, noshavewv.com. Let's talk a little Mountain East football. And for that, go to the phones where we're joined by the head coach of the Shepherd Rams, Monty Cater. Coach, thanks for joining us this evening.
Well, it's my pleasure. Appreciate being on.
Great to have you again and catch up on this game. So big playoff game coming up Saturday at noon against IUP. Go ahead and set this game up from your perspective. What are you telling your guys this week?
Well, we did have the extra week. Got the bye week as the number one seed in the in the region, but it's going to be a great challenge. I mean, we saw Charleston have a great first half and really played pretty well into the ball game. But these guys, they score in bunches and they come at you a lot of different ways. Very mobile, very athletic and fast quarterbacks. So that's nothing new. You see a lot of that these days in the different offenses in the Mountain East. But they are they're huge, number one, and got one of the best return guys in the country. And their defense is also very, very good. They got some transfers and stuff like that, some guys that have played at a higher level. But it's going to be certainly the biggest challenge that we've had. I mean, we had some real tough games, especially with Concord and with Charleston. But this is going to be a team that's 2 points from having a perfect season, and those 2 1-point losses, they still were able to get in the playoffs, and they're showing why they should be.
Is it fair to say one of the keys to this game is almost, if you will, strength on strength, your ability to stop the run, IUP's ability to rush the football? Does it start with that?
I think it does, and I think that's where our defense likes to go ahead and plan for each team that we're playing. If you can try and make them one-dimensional. If teams can go ahead and have equal success running and passing, we're going to have a long day. But we try to go ahead and try to take that run away, or at least limit that so that they do have to throw. Then you got a chance to go ahead and throw a curveball or two in there and, change your coverage and your pressure. But it's, like I say, the mobility of the quarterback is what changes a lot of those offenses. And everybody's running a little bit of that read option these days, and we do a little bit of that ourselves. But he is really good, and they like to go ahead and stretch you vertically a little bit, lull you to sleep with that. And it's not like they can't throw it anyway, but you get real conscious of trying to stop that option, and then you go ahead and leave somebody open running down the seam.
Shepherd head football coach Monty Cater is our guest.
Yeah, Monty, you mentioned that you had the week off while IUP played. Certainly resting up helps, but obviously there are disadvantages too, especially when you're a throwing team and you like to keep the rhythm of that pass game going. Did you like not playing in getting the time off, or would you rather just kept the ball rolling?
Well, you make a good point. I think what we had hoped was that we'd get the extra week because we had 4 starters that didn't play in the last game against Urbana, and we thought we would have a chance to get those guys back, plus some other guys that were hobbled a little bit, that was affecting how hard they could go or how close they were to 100%. That hasn't worked out as good as we thought. We're still not going to have a couple guys back, and a couple are still questionable even after that long period of time. So I think we've kept the timing part of it. I mean, we've been able to have some pretty good weather, and we've been able to go ahead and continue to work and practice and do the things you normally do. But we had just hoped we were going to get a couple guys back. And one of them is their inside linebacker, James Gupton. And he's just a fierce player and a first-team all-conference guy. And the respect he has in our league, for example, I mean, he missed the last 2 games that we played and still was in a position to go ahead and get that honor by the other coaches. So, that's a big loss. But the only thing we can say is that the guys that have had to play in front of the guys that have been injured, have gotten some playing time. So it's not like you're going to put somebody in there that hasn't had a chance to go to war yet.
Shepherd head football coach Monty Cater is our guest.
Yeah, Monty, the running attack of IUP, 307 yards per game. Have you faced anybody that is this run dominant so far this year?
No, we really haven't. I think we've seen some teams that very well could be considered balanced. Charleston's a great example of that. I think Concord's a great example of that. Others are probably a little bit more dominant with the run or the pass. But, again, it's when you can do both, that's what really challenges you. But this is easily going to be the best running team that we've seen. And, our work's going to be cut out for us, but that's what we try to work on the most and what we try to take away first. And, that'll be one of the challenges that we have.
We've gone far too long in this interview without mentioning your great quarterback, Mountain East Offensive Player of the Year, Jeff Ziemba. Just a fantastic year, 26 touchdowns, 2 picks. Tell us about his play so far this year.
I tell you, he's what's made a lot of the offense go. We have a very young and experienced offensive line. You say, well, they're a little bit more experienced now that they've got 10 games under their belt. But there's 3 redshirt freshmen that play a lot in that group. I think the thing that says an awful lot about Jeff is he hasn't enforced things. He's got great pocket presence, can move around. He keeps the play alive a long time and is able to go ahead and find somebody that's been open. Now, we got some good people for him to throw to. But the challenge for us, again, this week is going to be, he's got to be standing up at the end of the play and got to have some time to go ahead and throw it. And he just doesn't make mistakes. He's thrown 4 picks in 2 years, and 2 of those 4 have been deflected balls. So he's just done a great job of making good decisions. But, Joel Gordon was a great quarterback here, and that's his coach, and he's done a great job with Jeff.
Could you, is Billy Brown the biggest key to this passing attack after the quarterback, or you guys will spread the ball around a little bit, but certainly Brown is the guy that has gotten a bulk of those catches?
You're exactly right, and he's a big target, 6'4", about 230, and he's got some of the best hands of anybody that's played at Shepherd in the time I've been here, which is a while. So, that compliment doesn't come easy, but he's just really, really good. Plus, once he catches the ball, it's very difficult for one person to bring him down, especially smaller defensive backs that are playing because they have speed or quickness. He's a big kid, and, we've been able to go ahead and get the ball to him, or if they single him, have an opportunity to go ahead and hopefully have a tough day for whoever's got that job. But, we've got some other good people. Dalton Boyd's been a real good receiver for us as a stretcher, somebody with some speed, made some big catches for us. And Tony Squire, I mean, there are a number of people that we've been able to go ahead and plug in there with Billy. But you're right, he is going to be a key.
You've been involved in a lot of playoff games over your career. Obviously, your kids weren't there last year, but they have been in the not too distant past. Is this different? I mean, is the pressure different, especially for the players, once you get into this situation where it's win or go home?
Well, you make a good point with that, too. I mean, they understand that. And, you'd like to go ahead and keep the string going. This will be the fourth time we've played IUP in the playoffs. And and the last time we played them, it was up there. We didn't play particularly well, and even with a lead in the second half, we weren't able to hold them off. So we have a number of kids who have playoff experience, and I think that does help. They've been there before and in this position before, so I think they're going to be ready to go. But we do have a lot of youth. We're a young football team, but even with only 13 seniors, and a couple of those are not necessarily starters, I think there's some good experience here, and I think that's going to help carry the youth into a game as important as this one.
All right, Coach, we'll let you run and leave it there. Thank you for the time tonight. Best of luck on Saturday, and we'll hope to talk to you again next week after a win.
All right. Thank you very much, man.
All right, there he is. Shepherd head football coach Monty Cater. And reminder, you can watch the game, Shepherd versus IUP, Saturday at noon at the Metro News channel at our website, wvmetronews.com. Stay with us. Final break to take. We're back after this.
This Saturday, the West Virginia Mountaineers return home for a Big 12 matchup with the Iowa State Cyclones. Join Metro News for the best, most listened to game day coverage. The pregame fun starts at 9 a.m. with the Jeep Gold and Blue Countdown, followed by the Sports Brunch. Game line kicks off at high noon. Then postgame analysis begins at 3 with the Gold and Blue Wrap-Up, brought to you by the West Virginia Oil and Natural Gas Association. Don't miss game day coverage at its best, beginning Saturday morning at 9, right here on Metro News.
Is your business or organization struggling when it comes time to tell your story? After all, your story is what makes you unique. Your story is what makes potential clients and customers draw themselves to you. Unfortunately, oftentimes, those stories aren't told and businesses and organizations remain mired in mediocrity. At Pikewood Creative, we produce videos and commercials in a way that make people take notice. If you need some visual help, then visit us at pikewoodcreative.com.
There are things that make our lives easier.
Locking shoelaces, pizza scissors, remote control mops, one-hand bottle cap openers, and the Know Before You Go driving app.
It's free travel information on West Virginia highways, traffic congestion, work zones, road conditions, information that can make your travel easier. Log on to WV511.org or download the WV511 Drive Safe app.
Know Before You Go. It'll make your life easier.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
When something is missing from the picture, it doesn't make sense. Without the right people, your work site is just a site. Your office is just a space. Let's Train West Virginia has grant funding for on-the-job training in today's in-demand careers. Workers learn while they earn, and companies can be reimbursed up to $10,000 per eligible new hire. So qualified employees and satisfied employers complete the picture. Learn more at letstrainwv.com.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Final segment of the show, Northside Automotive, Statewide, Sportsline, Brad Howe, Greg Hunter, along with you. And a reminder, the Greenbrier kicks off 60 days of holiday cheer at the Christmas tree lighting ceremony this Saturday. The event includes carols at the Spring House, a visit from Santa, hot chocolate, and cookies. If you can't make it this weekend, the ceremony continues each Saturday of December and is open to both overnight and day guests. Real spirit. You'll find it here. Wild, wonderful, West Virginia. Let's go to the phones real quick. Hear from Mark in Clarksburg. Mark, thanks for holding. Welcome to the show. You're on.
Hey, fellas. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir. You as well.
I just wanted to call for a second. I've been wanting to do this for a month or so. You've seen our head football coach has grown in this job tremendously. He is a totally different coach than he was when he first came here. And we could talk for a half hour about all the things that his Chiefs changed, from the air raid to, he had a scat back when he first came here, and once in a while you could scoot him through the line to make a long gain, but never have any lineman could knock somebody off the ball. We didn't have any, consistent running attack. Now he's more of a complete football coach, and that's not to say also, look at the amount of attention he has spent on building a defense too. And before the first game we had in the Big 12 was 70. We had to score 70 points to win. You guys remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the athletic director ought to give him an extension because we spent a lot of money here. He's learned on the job, and he's a much different coach now than he was. And he knows what he has to do. We got to get more depth. That schedule we have next year, I don't know if we've ever had a schedule that difficult since I've been following West Virginia for 50 years. So anyway, I just want to say that nobody gets up there and says this much, but I think they better give him an extension. You could do a lot worse. Trust me, and we've got a good man.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate the call. And to that point, Greg, an extension is coming, if not an entirely new contract. And I've said this a bunch. I started saying it back in the summer. There's only 2 years remaining on Dana's contract after this year. It's extremely rare in Division I football to be coaching with only 2 years on your contract. In fact, of the contracts that you have access to, meaning there's some private schools that don't report that, of the contracts you have access to, there were only 2 that coached this season with 2 years remaining. One was Tim Beckman at Illinois, who was fired a week before the season started, and Mike London at Virginia, who many expect to be fired following their season finale against Virginia Tech. So it's extremely rare. So I think it's coming. I think here is the fascinating issue that's going to come up, though. I think if you're West Virginia University, speaking strictly from their side of things, you've got to do something to try and bring this contract back into a manageable position. And by that, I mean, you can't, in my opinion, if you're Shane Lyons, just offer Dana 2 or 3 more years, get him to 4 or 5, and have it be with no buyout as the contract sits now. Meaning, if you're going to make a change in the football coaching position, that you've got to pay the entire amount in that contract, which, just for round numbers, let's say it's a 5-year deal at $3 million a year, that you owe somebody $15 million, which is what the contract is now that was given to Dana by Oliver Luck. I just think if you're the department, you just can't do that because it handcuffs you so much. So I think that's what's most fascinating. Will Shane go in with a contract that says, all right, here's a new deal, but there's now going to be a buyout in there, whatever that number is, million and a half, 2 million, 2.5 million, whatever that number is, less than the 15, that gives the athletic department some out if they need over the next 1 year, 2 year, 4 years, whatever it is. Now, the interesting part is, quite frankly, I'd be stunned if that's not what Shane Lyons does. I think that's the approach you take if you're the athletic director. Dana Holgerson doesn't have to accept that. He's coming off a season which he should be an 8-win season, maybe win 9 in a bowl. He does not have to accept that. What if he says, no, I'm not signing that? Do you let him coach with 2 years? Do you cave on that demand? I think this could be a really interesting, and I don't know that we'll know all those details, but I think this coming up off season for a first-time athletic director in Shane Lyons, this is a heck of a big offseason when it comes to your football program.
Who has the advantage in these negotiations if Dana the Mountaineers finish this season strong? So said they get to 9 wins. Does that give him the advantage that he can dictate the terms much more readily than he can now and ask for a much more substantial buyout than you just talked about?
The normal situation would be yes, and we see that all the time with coaches. When they win 8 or 9, they're coming in wanting to renegotiate their deal for more money. So yes, I think you know what you don't know? You know what you just don't know is how willing would Shane Lyons be to let Dana Holgorsen walk? I mean, that's the part of this equation you don't know. We talked about Dana's status as the losses were piling up in October. Was Shane Lyons in a position that he was going to say, all right, we're prepared to move on to find another coach, or does he believe in his year of evaluation of Dana Holgorsen that he thinks Dana Holgorsen is the right guy for this job and wants him to continue on? That's the $15 million question that you don't know the answer to. The other part of this will be, and that same answer comes into play, will Dana's name get brought up for some of these jobs? There's a ton of jobs open, and there's going to be a ton more open once people start moving.
Sure.
Normally, in a normal situation, and we've seen this how many times over the years, that's one of the challenges of an athletic director here is, okay, you had a great season. Now I've got to re-up and push more money into the center of the table for the football coach. So all of those things, throw all of that stuff in the pot, spin it, stir it up, and Shane Lyons is going to have a pretty big decision here in the offseason.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not just West Virginia and Dana in this negotiation. It could be Dana with South Carolina or or Miami or School X that changes the negotiation by the Mountaineers. And then at that point, not only is it your negotiation, but how willing are you to lose him to another school? If he wins 9, he changes his attractiveness level a whole lot than where he was a few weeks ago when we were talking about him maybe getting to 500.
Yeah.
But probably again, not being attractive at 500, but not a 9-win coach. That changes it.
And again, it just simply comes down to where you want to be with the future of the program. Because if you were willing to make a change earlier, you may say, okay, you've got a better opportunity at Iowa State. Dana's an Iowa native. Iowa State's going to hire you. Okay, well, best of luck. We'll take the $2 million buyout you owe us, put that towards a new coach, and we'll try and move forward in that way. So I don't think it's your typical, we've just won 8 or 9, I'm going to renegotiate and I have all the leverage situation. I think there's some other things at play. And again, I think if you're Shane Lyons and this is the first deal you're doing, I don't know how you can get into a contract with, in essence, no buyout and having to owe your next football coach $15 million because you're just, quite frankly, you're just handcuffed. Sure. So I think this is fascinating. I think this upcoming off season will be something to keep an eye on for sure. We'll talk more about that as the next few weeks unfold. That'll do it for tonight. If you missed any part of the show, remember you can catch the podcast on iTunes or visit our website, wvmetronews.com, and download tonight's show. Thanks to Coach Monty Cater from Shepherd, Jake Trotter from ESPN. Thanks to Deb Martinelli on the video, J.R. Falls on the phone. High School Sports Night is up next. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Greg Hunter and I back with you tomorrow. There will be a live show from Sportsline. Want to hear what you ate on Thanksgiving. Hunter, I want a rundown of what you had during Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow night.
We don't have enough time in 54 minutes.
That'll do it. Garrett and the guys up next, High School Sports Line. Thanks for listening. For Greg, I'm Brad. We're out.